The Colorado roadside, the Colorado sun burned high, casting harsh light over a desolate stretch of highway 30 minutes outside Grand Junction. Dust swirled in the dry air, clinging to the worn laces of Jalen Brooks' work boots as he stepped off the gravel shoulder. At 19 he was tall but wiry, his deep brown skin slick with sweat, sleeves rolled past his elbows. His eyes squinted against the glare as he approached a sleek Porsche stranded on the roadside, its rear tire shredded. Sienna. Taylor, a young millionaire in scuffed $1,000 leather flats, lowered her sunglasses, her expression more curious than alarmed. "You look like you've been out here all day," Jalen said, his voice steady, carrying a quiet kindness. "I've been here long enough to hate every cactus in a 5-mile radius," Sienna replied, brushing a strand of dark hair from her flushed cheek, her tone dry but tinged with exhaustion. Jalen chuckled, the sound gentle and genuine. "Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated, glancing around. No reception, no help for miles, and a tire that looked like it had lost a fight with the road. His eyes met hers, clear, calm, unbothered by the Porsche's logo or her designer clothes. She nodded. He dropped his worn backpack, unzipped it with practiced ease, and pulled out a pair of work gloves and a compact toolkit, its leather case weathered, as if passed down through generations. "You've got a spare?" he asked, already kneeling beside the tire. "In the back, I think," Sienna said, stepping aside. Jalen opened the trunk, retrieved the spare, and set to work without another word. Sienna folded her arms and leaned against the car, watching in silence. There was something mesmerizing about his efficiency, the way he didn't waste a single movement, the rhythm of his hands tightening bolts, the way the sun caught the sweat on his brow and gleamed in the dark curls sticking to his temple. "You do this often?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Sometimes," he said, not looking up. "My uncle owned a shop in town. Taught me everything before he passed." That silenced her. After a few more turns of the wrench, he stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You're all set." Sienna reached for her wallet. "Let me," he held up a hand, stepping back. "No need, ma'am. I'm just glad I came down this road today." Her fingers froze halfway inside her leather clutch. "You don't want anything?" "I've got what I need," he said simply, slinging his pack over one shoulder. She didn't know what stunned her more, his skill or his refusal. "What's your name?" "Jalen," he said. "Jalen Brooks." "Sienna," she offered, almost reluctantly. "Taylor." He nodded once, smiled, and started walking up the hill, his shadow stretching long across the cracked asphalt as the late sun dipped low. Scene 2. The balcony that night. Sienna sat on the balcony of her family's second home, a modern ranch. Perched above the Colorado River, the sleek lines of the house glowed under the moonlight, but the glass of wine in her hand had gone warm, forgotten. Her phone buzzed relentlessly beside her text from her publicist, her ex, the board members who'd turned their backs on her 3 weeks earlier. She ignored them all. Her thoughts kept drifting to Jalen, the calluses on his hands, the quiet strength in his voice, the way he'd walked away without a second glance. 3 weeks ago, her own company, Carrington Green, had voted her out as CEO, a position her father had built for her. They called it a graceful transition. She called it betrayal. Her investors, the tech blogs, her so-called allies, none of them knew what grace really looked like. But Jalen had shown her, in a moment as simple as fixing a tire. Scene 3. The return 2 days later. Sienna found herself driving the same route, her Porsche humming past the gas station, the Rock Ridge, her eyes scanning every shoulder for a familiar figure. It was ridiculous, she knew, but something in her wouldn't let it go. At the edge of town, just beyond a row of weathered mailboxes and a sagging fence, she spotted him. Jalen was balanced on a ladder, hammering nails into a rotting awning. Above an old woman's porch. She parked, stepped out, and watched. He didn't notice her at first, not until the woman below shouted, "You got company, hon." Jalen turned, blinked, then smiled, cautious but curious. "Miss Taylor?" "I was in the neighborhood," Sienna said, her lie transparent. He climbed down, dusting his hands. "Everything okay with the tire?" "Perfect," she replied. "But I never got to say thank you properly," he shrugged. "You already did." She glanced at the porch, the nails, the bent ladder. "You do this a lot?" "Sometimes people need help," he said. "And I like using my hands." They stood in silence, the wind carrying the scent of cedar and dust. Something passed between them, recognition, maybe, or respect. Sienna reached into her car and handed him a cold bottle of water. Their fingers brushed, and she didn't look away. "Thanks," he said, unscrewing the cap. "I don't suppose you like coffee?" she asked. He smiled, the first full smile she'd seen. "Depends who's asking." She smiled back, just slightly. "Someone who's not done driving this road yet." Scene 4. The cafe sat at the edge of town, wedged between a pawn shop and a shuttered video rental. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of fried potatoes and the slow hum of a dusty ceiling fan. Locals leaned over chipped formica tables, sipping lukewarm coffee, swapping stories without urgency. No one noticed the woman in designer jeans and a gray linen blouse slip into the corner booth, except the server, who raised an eyebrow at her polished heels. Sienna smiled politely, ordered black coffee, and settled into the cracked red leather seat. Her eyes scanned the window, lingering on the street where she'd seen Jalen 2 days earlier. The image of him on that ladder, hammer in hand, back curved as he braced the wood, hadn't left her. The bell above the door jingled, and a gust of warm air followed a familiar silhouette. Jalen stepped in, dusted with sawdust, sleeves rolled, hands darkened by work. He nodded at the man behind the counter, then froze when he caught Sienna's gaze, his body stilling for a moment. "Hey," she said, standing, fingers lightly gripping the back of the booth. "Didn't think I'd see you again," he said, offering a polite nod. "Join me." She gestured to the seat across. He hesitated, then sat slowly, as if testing for a trap. "I don't usually do coffee breaks with millionaires. I don't usually chase down mechanics," she said, smirking. He chuckled under his breath. "I'm not really a mechanic. You fix things," she said simply. "You fixed me." Jalen tilted his head, unsure. "You were just stuck, that's all." "Sometimes being stuck is more dangerous than being broken," she said quietly. Their coffees arrived. He stirred sugar into his, watching her through narrowed eyes. "So," he said after a pause, "why are you really here?" Sienna exhaled, glancing out the window. "Honestly, I don't know. I was driving, and I ended up here again." He leaned back. "You're not used to being curious without a reason, are you?" She met his gaze. "I'm not used to someone walking away from me." Jalen looked down at his cup. "People like me don't usually get asked to stay." Silence fell, heavy but not bitter, the kind that held weight without trying to escape it. "I grew up in a home where nothing stayed fixed," he said finally. "Mom left. Dad drank. My aunt kept things together with duct tape and prayer. So I learned early, if something's broken and you can't replace it, you better learn to fix it. And you never ask for help." She smiled. I asked. He grinned. "It's cheaper." She laughed, unforced, and he liked that. He glanced out the window toward the church across the street. "What about you? What brings a woman like you to a place like this?" Sienna looked away, searching for words. "I lost something," she said finally. "Maybe I never really had it. When I left the boardroom for the last time, no one looked me in the eye. They just handed me a check and said, 'Thank you for your service,' like I'd been dismissed from the military." Jalen's fingers drummed once on the table. "Sometimes the exit is the best part of the building." She smiled. "You're good with words." "I build fences for a living," he shrugged. "Gives you time to think." They sat quietly, the silence softer now, more familiar. Sienna reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, sliding it across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "An idea," she said. "A sketch for something I've been thinking about. A community shop, tools, mentorship, maybe training programs. But it needs someone who actually knows how to build things." Jalen didn't touch the notebook. "You barely know me. I know what you did when no one was watching." She said, "That's more than I can say for most people in my world." He picked up the notebook, turned it in his hands, and opened it slowly. Blue ink, simple sketches, rough ideas, but the intention was clear. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," he said. "I'm not sure I am either," she admitted. Their eyes met, and neither looked away. Outside, the wind kicked up dust across the pavement. Inside, two strangers sat with nothing but coffee, a dream, and a connection too new to name. "Okay," he said finally, voice low but certain. "Let's see where this road goes." Scene 5. The Carrington Estate. The Carrington Estate sprawled in the Aspen foothills. A 3-story marriage of steel and glass that looked ripped from an architectural magazine. Spotless windows reflected a sky too perfect to be real. Every bush manicured, every flower bed under contract. Jalen stood at the front steps, hands shoved in the pockets of a borrowed button-down shirt Sienna had insisted he wear. It felt stiff, unfamiliar, like the world behind those double doors. "You sure you want to do this?" Sienna asked, her voice soft beside him. "I'm just here for the food," he said. Not looking at her, she laughed gently and pushed open the brass-handled door. Inside, chandeliers cast warm light, and laughter echoed off marble floors. Guests in tailored jackets and sequin dresses mingled around a piano, clinking glasses of expensive wine. A jazz trio played softly in the background. Heads turned. As Sienna and Jalen entered, her arm brushing his. "They're just people," she whispered. "No," he replied, eyes scanning the room. "They're your people." A man in his 50s approached, his smile practiced. "Sienna, we thought you weren't coming." His eyes flicked to Jalen, then back to her. "And you brought a guest." "This is Jalen Brooks," Sienna said firmly. "He's helping me with a new project." "Charmed," the man said flatly, turning back to his glass. The warmth in the room felt thinner. Jalen stepped aside, letting Sienna glide into conversations. With the ease of someone born to highball glasses and casual dominance, he drifted to the edge of the room, pausing by a table lined with hors d'oeuvres he couldn't pronounce. He reached for a toothpick, skewering something that looked like meat, then hesitated and took a cracker instead. "You're not from around here, are you?" a voice sneered. Jalen turned. A man in his mid-30s, crisp blazer, drink in hand, wore a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Excuse me?" "Relax, just making conversation," the man said. "Sienna tends to bring home projects." Jalen's jaw tensed. "She didn't bring home anything," the man chuckled. "Easy. I'm just saying she's known for picking up lost causes, dogs, startup strangers." Before Jalen could respond, Sienna's voice cut through. "Is there a problem here?" The man straightened. "No problem. Just chatting with your friend." Sienna's eyes locked on him, ice behind. Her smile. "Then find someone else to chat with." The man walked away, muttering into his drink. Jalen turned to her. "That's what this is to them. A show, a charity case." "He's a jerk," she said, embarrassed. "Yeah, but he's not the only one staring. They don't matter." "They matter to you," he said quietly, "and I don't." She didn't answer. He stepped through a side door onto the terrace, the night air hitting him like a confession. He leaned on the railing, looking out over miles of darkness dotted with distant lights. Sienna followed moments later. "I didn't think it'd be like this," she said. "Didn't think I'd be on display," he said, not looking at her. "I wanted you here." "Yeah? Or did you want to feel better about yourself?" "That hurt." She said nothing. He turned, his voice steady but low. I'm not angry you're rich. I'm angry you thought bringing me here would make anything easier for either of us. You think I don't see it too." She snapped. "The way they look at me since I left the company, like I'm broken, like I lost my edge. Maybe I brought you here to show them something good I found outside their world." He stared at her. "Turns out, you don't want to be seen either." Silence, heavy and real. Then he said softer, "I've spent my life blending in, so I wouldn't get hurt." She stepped closer. "I'm not here to hurt you, Jalen." "Then don't parade me." They stood inches apart, no music, no voices, just the hum of a landscape they both felt alien to. He glanced away. "You don't know what it's like, walking into a room and waiting to be called the mistake." "Maybe not," she said. "But I know what it's like to stand in one and not know who I am anymore." For a moment, the distance between them wasn't money or race or history, just two people trying not to drown. He looked at her again. "I should go." She nodded, eyes glassy. "Okay." He stepped past her, paused, then said without turning, "It wasn't the food I came for. You." And he walked into the night. Scene 6. The hardware lot, the afternoon. Sun beat down on the gravel lot outside Thompson Hardware, the air thick with the smell of cut lumber and machine oil. Jalen stood under the shade of a half-assembled shed, hands deep in a box of bolts, pretending not to hear the familiar hum of Sienna's Porsche pulling up. She stepped out, heels traded for low boots, hair tied back, her face flushed but not. "From the heat, you lost again?" he asked, not looking up. "I was in the area," she said. "You rich folks always in the area when you want something," he said, his tone dry but not cruel. She stepped closer, stopping just short of the tools spread across the workbench. "I'm not here for a fight." "Good," he muttered. "I'm tired of those. I wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, "for thinking you'd enjoy being a curiosity in my world, for putting you there, and for not stopping that night when you clearly wanted to leave." Jalen sighed, wiping his hands on a rag. "It wasn't about leaving. It was about being seen the wrong way." Sienna looked around the dust, the wood, the open sky, a world far from the Carrington Estate's curated guest lists. "I brought you into my space, but I never gave you room to breathe." He finally looked at her. "Why do you care so much?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You're the first person in years who looked at me without expectation or judgment. You just saw me. And when I lost everything, when I couldn't walk into my boardroom without whispers, you reminded me I still had worth." Jalen folded, his arms guarded. "So now I'm your emotional crutch?" "No," she said. "You're my mirror. The one thing in my life that's been honest." A breeze stirred the dust. Somewhere behind them, a table saw word to life. She reached into her bag and pulled out the notebook, now worn, creased at the corners, full of new pages. "I kept working on it. The community workshop mentorship, vocational training. It's not a pitch, it's real." He took it, thumbed through the pages in silence. "Why me?" She smiled, eyes wet but steady. "Because you don't need to be rich to be extraordinary." For the first time since the terrace, he let himself really look at her. Beyond the wealth, beyond the chaos, just her. He nodded. "All right, I'll help you build it. But on one condition." "What?" "Stop apologizing for loving something real." Sienna blinked, then laughed, soft and grateful. "Deal." Later that week, they sat across from each other on the tailgate of an old pickup, plans spread between them, coffee in hand, dusk sinking into the mountains. Jalen pointed at a blueprint. "You drew this electrical setup backwards." Sienna frowned. "No, I didn't." He raised an eyebrow. She sighed. "Fine, maybe I did." He smirked. "You're lucky I'm patient." "I'm lucky for a lot of things lately," she said, sipping her coffee, eyes on the horizon. "They're going to come after me again, you know. The board, the press. They think this is a vanity project. It's not." They'll say I'm throwing money at a boy I barely know. Jalen shrugged. Then let them say it. She looked at him. You're not afraid? I've been underestimated my whole life. It doesn't scare me anymore. It fuels me. Silence. Fell, sturdy, like something building. Then he added, almost casually, You're not the only one who lost something. She turned toward him. What? I lost faith a long time ago, he said. In people, in fairness, in second chances. But you showing up every time that started something. Her voice softened. What did it start? He looked at her, really looked at her. Hope. Scene 7. The Denver Civic Convention Center. The Denver Civic Convention Center shimmered under the late spring sun, its glass panels gleaming like armor. Inside, rows of seats filled with tech investors, media personalities, and startup darlings buzzed with anticipation. A massive LED screen pulsed with sponsor logos and the afternoon's agenda. Sienna stood in the wings, microphone clipped. Palms damp. You don't have to do this, her assistant whispered. Yes, I do, she said, voice firm. They need to see it. All of it. She adjusted her matte black blazer and stepped forward as her name was announced to polite applause. Please welcome Sienna Taylor, founder of Elevate Tech and former CEO of Carrington Green. Jalen watched from the back row, rigid in a borrowed blazer, his work boots out of place among the suits. He didn't care. He was here because she'd asked, and because he wanted to be. He knew what today meant. He knew the vultures were waiting. Sienna approached the podium, lights blinding her momentarily. She didn't flinch. She looked across. The sea of faces, then down at her notes, but didn't read them. I'm not here to talk about market projections, she began, or IPOs or exit strategies. A murmur of confusion rippled through the audience. I'm here to talk about what happens when we lose sight of people in pursuit of profit, when we trade integrity for influence, when we silence the voices that don't wear suits. The murmurs turned sharp. You all know I left Carrington Green. What you don't know is why. The screen flickered. A photo appeared not of spreadsheets or solar panels, but of a tool-strewn workbench, hands gripping wood, a young man teaching children to build. I left because the people I worked with stopped listening. They stopped believing innovation comes from unexpected places. She took a breath. Last month, I brought a young man, Jalen Brooks, to one of my industry events. You probably read the articles, the comments, the assumptions. Her throat tightened, but she pushed through. What none of you saw was what I saw: a builder. A teacher, a man with more wisdom than some of the executives I sat beside for 10 years. She looked toward the crowd, toward Jalen, even if she couldn't see him. I love him. The room went silent, stunned. And if that costs me your funding, your respect, or your invitation to next year's keynote, so be it. Gasps, phones raised. The silence shattered. She smiled barely. Because I'd rather build something honest with him than keep pretending with any of you. She walked off stage. Backstage, her assistant looked pale. Sienna, the press. Let them write, she said, pulling off the mic. I gave them something worth writing. Jalen stood frozen in the hallway, having slipped back as her speech ended. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. I know, she said, walking toward him. You could lose everything. Then let me lose it with intention. He looked at her, eyes heavy but alive. You meant it? All of it, she said, stepping closer. They stood inches apart in the storm. Then I'm staying, he sighed. A beat passed. Her voice cracked, soft. Good. Scene 8, the aftermath that night. The internet burned. Headlines screamed. Sienna Taylor declares love for unknown builder at Tech Summit. CEO walks away from fortune for a man with dirt under his nails. Investors pulled out of her community project. Former board members issued statements distancing themselves. But something else happened too. Letters poured in, emails. Handwritten notes from teachers, veterans, welders, grandmothers. Stories of people seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. One stood out. A note from a 12-year-old girl in Detroit. "My brother says I can't build things because I'm a girl, but you showed them on that stage. You built something. Brave." Sienna read it aloud to Jalen under a sky full of stars, sitting on the porch of the workshop they were building. He leaned back, arms behind his head. "She gets it." Sienna nodded. "Yeah, she does." He turned to her. "You know, you didn't just break their silence." "What do you mean?" "You broke mine." Scene 9. The workshop 1 year later. The morning sun stretched across the gravel driveway of the Brooks and Taylor Institute, just outside Grand Junction, where an abandoned warehouse once stood. A clean-lined structure of pine wood and corrugated steel now rose, its front windows etched with skills, dignity, future. Inside, the scent of sawdust and fresh paint mixed with brewed coffee and cinnamon rolls donated by a local bakery. Young men and women, black, white, Latino, Navajo, laughed, drilled, and built. Jallen stood at the head of the room, jeans and a dark blue shirt under a chalk-streaked apron. He leaned over a table, showing a student how to cut a dovetail joint with precision. Every student watched, not out of obligation but admiration. He no longer felt out of place in front of a crowd. He was home. Sienna stood by the entrance, greeting community leaders, donors, and old friends. She looked different, not in wealth or status, but in presence, grounded and clear. Her phone buzzed with press requests, but she didn't glance at it. Outside, guests gathered around a podium framed by American flags and young trees planted the previous spring. Jalen stepped up, adjusting the mic, hands steady. He looked out at the faces, familiar and new, and exhaled. "I used to believe some people were born to stay small," he began. "That no matter how good you were, how hard you worked, there were places you'd never be invited into." He paused. "Then I met someone who didn't invite me in. She walked out of the door herself, sat beside me, and listened." Sienna's eyes shone. Several people dabbed tears. "She didn't hand me a ladder," he said. "She handed me tools. And together, we built something bigger than either of us." He nodded toward the building. "This place isn't just for kids learning to build tables. It's for anyone told they don't belong. For the ones who fix things quietly, who don't wear suits, who know the value of calloused hands. It's for the ones like me." Applause erupted. He let the moment breathe, then added, "We named it Brooks and Taylor, but this house doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the future." Later, on the back steps, Sienna leaned her head on his shoulder. "You nailed it." "I didn't stutter," he teased. "Nope. You turned every grown man into a puddle." He laughed, the sound deeper, healed. "Do you ever miss it? The old world?" "Not for a second," she said. "I didn't lose power. I found a better way to use it." He nodded. "You remember what you said a year ago, after that conference?" "Which part?" "That loving something real was worth losing everything else." She looked up at him. "Yeah." He held her hand, kissed her knuckles. "You were right." That evening, dusk softened the sky. The workshop glowed, light spilling from its windows, laughter and the clatter of hammers echoing inside. An old pickup pulled up along the road. Mrs. Temple, the retired school librarian, rolled down her window, misty-eyed. She'd lived in this town her whole life. "They turned a scrapyard into a sanctuary," she whispered. She wasn't wrong. Inside, Jalen helped a student line up a drill. Easy pressure. Let the tool do the work. The boy looked up. "You ever get scared?" Jalen smiled. "All the time." "So how do you know you're doing the right thing?" He thought for a second. "When it feels like you're building something bigger than yourself, and it scares you just enough to mean something." That's how. The bell above the workshop door jingled. Sienna walked in, holding a small framed photo of Jalen teaching, inscribed with "Love Builds." She handed it to him. He looked at it, then at her. "Where do we hang it?" She smiled. "At the heart,"